So for our second keynote today, we have Susan Cottrell. She is a prominent voice for faith parents of LGBTI children, was featured on ABC's 2020, Nightline, Good Morning America, NBC News Out, on the Advocates magazines, National Coming Out Day, Mother's Day, and other viral videos, such as our favorite affirming matriarch. She is an international speaker, public theologian, acclaimed author and consultant. Through her nonprofit organization, Freed Hearts, Susan champions the LGBTQI community and the families with her authenticity and tender-hearted zeal. She has a Master's of Arts in Theological Studies and served as the Vice President of the PFLAG Austin, Texas chapter. Her critically acclaimed book, Mom, I'm Gay, Loving Your LGBTQ Child and Strengthening Your Faith, True Colors, Celebrating the Truth and Beauty of the Real You, and Radically Included, the biblical case for radical love and inclusion, are endorsed by the Human Rights Campaign, PFLAG, the Gay Christian Network, and many, many others. She and her husband, Rob, have been married for 30 plus years. They live in Austin, have 5 children, 2 of whom are LGBTI and in the LGBTI community. I'd like to welcome you all, Susan Cottrell.
Well, I just got in yesterday and had a great flight on the way in, but something happened on the plane. Everything was really smooth, going really well, and then we hit some really serious turbulence, and it got really scary. The woman next to me was terrified. I don't know if she's even flown before. She said, I've never been a religious person, but I'm so scared now with all this turbulence. I think maybe it's time to get religious. So she started taking away gay people's rights. Just kidding. That is, thank you, comedian Dan Mintz for that. He's the voice of Tina Belcher on Bob's Burgers. All right. But that's how it feels today, doesn't it? My husband and I raised our 5 kids in the evangelical church for 20 years. We have repented of that. But in the beginning, it seemed good. In the beginning, it felt like community. We did everything there. We taught, we served, we led worship, and sang on the praise team. We thought they loved us. But the moment our daughter came out, the love evaporated. Perhaps you've been there. All bets were off. Suddenly, we were disposable, and they disposed of us. How can you spend 20-some years in a community of unconditional love or grow up in a family of unconditional love? And suddenly one thing shifts and that love is gone. How can that be? It's terrifying and it's totally unjust. What seemed to be love was really conditional approval. And when you no longer meet the conditions, the approval is removed. It's gone. FYI, that's not love. Now here's the thing. These people don't mean to be unloving. They really don't, but they've been deeply and badly conditioned. When my daughter came out, she called me from college. She was 20. She said, Mom, I'm attracted to girls. I think I'm bisexual. And it was very scary. She said, I've resisted, I've prayed, but it won't go away. You know, many of you have had that conversation. And my thought was, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to her? Will she be safe? Will she be bullied? You know, what does this mean about her faith or our faith? Will she have a career? All of those questions came up. Those are legit questions that are sort of a fear-based response. And I wondered if society would throw her aside. This began in us a process of discovery. My husband and I really needed to find out what this was all about. And the church in that process was useless, worse than useless. I told my closest friends about my daughter, thinking they might be able to give me some wisdom, at least some compassion. But they didn't. They went straight to the rules. They said, being gay is a sin and you can't accept it. Thought, what does that even mean? This is my daughter we're talking about. It's not a job offer that's not paying enough. It's my daughter. So it was a really big, shock to us. But I chose Annie, left the church, and that's what the church, these non-affirming churches, not all churches, but non-affirming churches do, is put you in a position of having to choose between your child and your church. And they frame it as choosing between your child and God. But let me be very, very clear, that's not the choice. The choice is between your child and your church community, your church doctrine, your current understanding, your current worldview, okay? Well, all of those are negotiable. My child is not negotiable. We held on to our child. And I just want to tell you, thank you. And I just want to tell you that family is really important to me. Both my parents and 3 of my brothers died by the time I was 24. It was a really traumatic childhood, as you can imagine. And they didn't even die by choice. They, were sick and various things happened. So to choose to reject a family member, I don't view family members as expendable. And I'm shocked that a parent would. I really am. But because of the teaching in the church, we had to come to understand, kind of dismantle our understanding and relearn. And we did that. What does the Bible really say? What does God really say? And we started a journey to reconcile those faith issues. And as my husband Rob likes to say, when you open whatever box you have God in, all heaven breaks loose. And that's exactly what happened. We did that hard work. We discovered the Bible passages were, okay. We spent like 3 years really trying to discover this. And here are our findings. We found that God has nothing negative to say about any LGBTQI plus people, period. I want you to know that. In fact, God has only rave reviews for you. Seriously. And that approval is unconditional. Not unconditional until you transgress the conditions and then it's withdrawn. No, it's really unconditional. Exactly as you are. Those handful of verses that you've heard tell about, these mystical, magical verses that are supposed to condemn you as a community, are completely false. Now, make it clear there are 32,000 verses in the Bible. That's a lot of verses. So you really have to do some searching to find 6 that maybe can be turned into what you want them to be. And that's what's happened with this community, against this community. But they don't mean what they're said to mean in any way, shape, or form. They're pulled out of context, historical context, literary context, common sense context, and applied to you falsely. So I want you to really understand that. And when they get thrown at you, it's the speaker revealing themselves. They're not revealing you. Do you understand what I mean? I love when Kate just said the needing someone to accept your gender is a phase, and then you come a valid phase. But you get past that where you understand that my gender is mine, and if you don't understand it, that speaks about you, not me. And it's the same thing here with these verses, that people have their understanding, but it doesn't reflect on you, and you don't have to satisfy them. The other finding we found in this journey of discovery was that these people do not understand Jesus. Yeah? Is that resonating? They don't understand how Jesus actually treated people. When it comes to the issue, it's really Christians who have the problem, not Christ. They appropriate his name, calling themselves Christians, but they forget to also take on his teachings, his love, his spirit. Okay, well, don't take his name if you're not going to take the other things that he told you to take on, to love your neighbor as yourself, to treat others the way you want to be treated. That's a pretty important part of his name. If you're going to be if you're going to take on his name, take that too. By the way, I'll talk more deeply about this in my workshop at 2:45, I think, and about how to reclaim your faith and take your Jesus back from the non-affirming church. We may as well, they're not even using him. So if you have any Christianity in your faith background or your family, or you're just trying to make sense of it all, please join us. We'll have a lot of fun. I'll also talk about God and the first human as omnigender, just to whet your appetite. So how do you come out to parents who have been grafted into this church industrial complex? And make no mistake, it is a church industrial complex. These churches are big business. And the people in it, like the parents we talk to at Freed Hearts on a daily basis, maybe even your parents, are cogs in a wheel that keep the whole thing going. They've been taught that they're doing the right thing. They really believe it. At Freed Hearts, we've worked with thousands of Christian moms and dads, helping them accept and affirm their LGBTQI plus kids. So I want to give you 4 tips on how to come out to your Christian parents. I'm probably a little late on this for a lot of you. You're already out. But this was what we agreed on as part of what I want to talk about. So let me just give you these 4 tips. The first thing is to take care of you. Take care of you. And I'm basically starting at the worst case scenario. The idea is you want to hope for the best and plan for the worst, all right? So make a plan, and if you're in a position of risk, you're still living at home, or your parents are paying for college or helping you otherwise, consider that carefully. It can be soul-crushing to wait until you're beyond your parents' support, to sometimes for years before you come out. So you have to weigh that. Weigh the cost of that soul crush and the cost of what will happen to you if you come out. If you do come out, have a plan in case it turns bad. Have someone on call or have someone with you. Go to a public place. Over the years, we've helped a lot of people come out to their parents. And here are some of the ways that they've done it. One guy came out to his mom at a coffee shop, and he kept the keys with him. He was afraid she might take off. One young woman put campus security on her speed dial as she told her parents in her dorm room. Now, let me tell you, very often, the parents, when they learn that later, they're devastated because they had no idea of what that child was facing by telling them. Then again, you have people who react really badly. One teen had experienced his parents' volatile abuse, yelling, throwing the Bible at him. So his grandmother went with him to tell his parents. And when they did exactly that, they went ballistic, so Grandma took him right then and there to live with her. Yay for Grandma. And they grabbed the bag he had ready. Side note, prepare a bag. What would you put in that bag? Anything you'd want to have if you suddenly were displaced. Your devices, any paperwork that's hard to replace, like birth certificate, driver's license, social security card, passport, and cash if you've got it. And favorite clothes. Don't leave anything thinking, well, I'll get that later. Because if you're at risk like that and displaced, you might not ever get it again. Now, I don't want to scare you. I just want you to be better safe than sorry. It's better to laugh about having a bag you don't need than cry about needing a bag you don't have. It can be hard to tell if your parents will lose it completely, but the best indicator of future behavior is past behavior. So look at their response in the past, or their reactions in the past. If they have a history of flying off the handle, of telling you about God's will and God's wrath, they'll probably do that again. So consider carefully before you say something you can't unsay, and be ready to bolt. Okay, that was the worst case scenario. Now, for number 2, let's go back, pull back from the worst case and say the potential for reasonableness with your family. That number 2 would be to take care of your family. Take care of your family. So give them time. Because here's the deal, they didn't go through all this processing that you did. So they will need time, very likely. Their heads may be spinning. They're afraid for you, for them, and for what this might mean about your life. They're likely running the program the culture or the church has installed in them. They don't yet understand God's full love and inclusion. If you can stay calm, even if they're not, it will help you both. I talked to a lot of parents, and when they realized their kids were afraid to tell them that they actually took steps to protect themselves, it really breaks their hearts. Usually it breaks their hearts. They didn't even know that rejecting their child was a thing. Of course, you all have seen the devastation as your friends have found themselves homeless or beaten or cut off from everything. Just the fact that their child had to think about that is sobering to parents. They're also devastated, usually, that you've had to carry this around alone for so long. But here's what you can do to help them. Tell them that all is well, that you're good, that they didn't cause this, and that they don't have anything to regret, and that they're good too. But ask them to love you now, forward, as you are. They can be there now, even if they don't understand. And also be ready to offer them resources and answer their basic questions, like, are you sure? How do you know? But you dated so-and-so. Just, give them just a little bit of slack, because it's probably the first time they've really thought through it. This is a gift on your part, by the way, not an obligation. You don't have to answer anything you don't want to. Assure them that you can always talk again later after they've worked through some resources, after they've looked at things that will help them. We have a lot of resources on our site, freedhearts.org, that they can go to that will help them, or you can find and give them. And all of this only holds as long as they're respectful. You are not to suffer abuse in the name of helping your family. They respect you, the conversation continues. They don't respect you, then you are not obligated to stay in it. I filmed a cool video for the Advocate magazine that's just for parents, for Christian parents, and if you want to share that video with them, it's on my website, but it's very helpful. On the other hand, they may not be ready to talk, and you may have to wait. That's fair. Number 3, though, is to recognize that your parents' response reveals them, not you. Your parents' response reveals them, not you. In other words, if they say terrible things to you, they're hateful, vicious words, that's because that's in their worldview, not because you deserve it. Okay? Be very clear about that. When an affirming pastor, Tony Campolo, was a college chaplain, a student came up to him who was terrified that she was about to be outed by a fellow student to her parents. She was afraid they'd disown her. So Tony called the parents right then and there in the office and said, I have your daughter in my office. And the dad said, oh, wow, she's a great girl. She's smart, she's hardworking, kind, loving. And Tony said, yes. And in a minute, I'm going to find out if you're worthy of being her father. Yeah. You see, because his response reveals him, not her. Number 4 is remember the truth about you. Remember the truth about you, that no matter how your family reacts, they do love you. They just may be so clouded in fear right now that they've lost sight of how much they love you, but it's still true. And you deserve to be around people who love you. Maybe it has to be chosen family for a time, at least for a time. But make it a priority to be around people who love you, who support you, who nurture you, and who remind you the truth about you. I don't know what your mom or dad will say or what you're dealing with right now in the family, but I want to tell you as a mom about you, that you are worthy, that you matter, that you belong, period. You deserve to love and be loved for who you are. That's the truth about you. You see, it was only after Annie came out that I found out how badly the LGBTQI plus community was being treated. I had no idea. It's not on your radar if it's not on your radar, even though I had gay and lesbian friends growing up, but the bullying wasn't on my radar. When my daughter told me about her friend whose mother pushed her down the stairs and threw dishes at her, I was shocked. And in that moment is when I became an advocate, when I saw the devastating need. I mean, I supported my daughter from the beginning. And by the way, a year after she came out, my youngest daughter came out as well. So we're in 2 for 5, but it's okay. We love the straight ones too. And we always describe it as our older daughter who's studious and she's like always ahead of the game somehow, that she kind of came through with a machete to whack down our theology and help explain things to us and make sense of it, which was great. And then our younger daughter, in true youngest child fashion, comes through afterward. Me too. So get away with murder. But in that moment of hearing about my daughter's friend being pushed down the stairs, oh my gosh, I became a full-time public advocate, Rob and me both. I'm a full-time don't mess with me mama bear advocate. Because nobody should be bullied for being who they are. I was bullied every day in 6th grade just because. Never quite figured out why. And I didn't like it. And I don't like for anybody to be bullied. So my husband and I started our nonprofit, Freed Hearts. It's become our life purpose to make the world a better place for the LGBTQI plus community. Our goal is to free hearts, to love and be loved. We help moms and dads affirm and accept their LGBTQI plus children instead of shaming and rejecting them, or kicking them out of the house, or sending them into conversion therapy. We walk with those parents on their journey to reconcile their faith issues and then to become powerful advocates and allies themselves. And we work with the community as well to deal with family, religious, and community wounds. And we work to help make the church more inclusive. When pastors or parents condemn their own children, shame them in the name of God, that has nothing to do with those children or with God. It has only to do with them, and it is fear-based, and it is indefensible. If you've been on the receiving end of this kind of treatment, I am very sorry. You don't deserve any of it. And I am fortunate that I'm just about to have a TEDx talk, TEDx Mile High. It'll drop in January. Thank you very much. I'm thrilled about it. Yeah. And I'll be telling my story toward advocacy and trying to really, I'm hoping it really goes viral and reaches parents, because when parents come to us, we're really able to help them. But it's hard to reach them in those churches because, you know, it's a bubble. So let me transition here, and I want to ask something of you. I want you to breathe. Really breathe deeply and open your heart. And let this mama bear share a few things with you from my mom's heart to yours. If you were my child, I would tell you how much I love you. I would sit with you and brush away your tears. I would tell you that you deserve to be loved just because you're you, period. If you were my child, I would tell you that many parents would love to have you. Countless parents are delighted with their LGBTQ plus kids, and they would be delighted with you too. Let that sink in. If you were my child, I would tell you that you are a beautiful child of God. Yes, you really are. I don't care what they've said. It's true. I know you didn't choose to be gay or bisexual or transgender or however you identify. And God delights in you exactly the way you are. Anything else is a pack of lies. God not love you? That's crazy talk. God made you. If you were my child, I would chase away those hateful lies as I would chase away a bully or a bad dream. I would hug you and listen to you and listen for God's Spirit for you, quietly saying, you're exactly the way you were created, wonderfully, wonderful, and imperfectly perfect, and loved. If you were my child, I would tell you that no one has the right to bully you. Not church people, not Christians, not classmates, not parents. Bullying is not love. And it's even worse when they add God's name to it, as if God supports bullying. No. Parents who reject their LGBTQI plus children have their own issues, and it has nothing to do with you. And unfortunately, you can't help their issues. I would remind you that bullies everywhere, even parents, bully because they're hurt and afraid and wounded, and bullying reflects their own damage. It doesn't reflect on the object of the bullying. Their increased attack correlates to increased fear because they have their own boxes of understanding that are being forced open. But bullying doesn't mean they're right. It means they're wrong. Anyone who tried to bully you would have to go through me first. I would love you that much. And if you were my child, I would tell you that parents who harm children are the ones in sin. They're the ones breaking tons of rules like loving others, judging, helping their neighbor, serving those in need, and so serving Jesus. Those are just a few of the rules they're breaking, bullying you. Jesus was clear that anyone who hurts any of God's little ones is making a huge mistake. If you were my child, I would say you don't need to change a single thing. Changing to gain approval is not what relationships are about. Someone who requires you to change does not deserve you. But mostly if you were my child, I would take you out to lunch, we'd order an expensive latte, and I'd ask you about your crush because how fun is that? And because you're my child. That's what family does, because they love each other. I mean, for heaven's sake, what is a family for if not to love each other? I'm so very sorry if your parents have not been there for you, have not said good things to you. No one deserves that. It may be because they can't say it to themselves. They've been conditioned to believe lies about God, about you, about themselves. So please accept this love from me and from countless moms and dads who love you and who are fighting to make your life safer and better. We will never stop loving you. We will never stop fighting for you. We will never stop standing against the hate and the bullies. It's the very least we can do for you. With all our hearts, thank you.